$750 some thousand. But either way, it's sitting here with a zero actual cost. What's going on?
Through the chairman to council, my understanding is that now that the project is completed, we have to do some transferring of money around between various accounts with respect to where it got done, and then this project will be closed.
And when was it completed?
My understanding is that it was completed at the end, like the warranty period and everything was done at the end of 2016.
This report is updated April 2017. When do we actually do the moving of the money to the accounts?
I will leave that to finance when they do that. I know that Public Works has not provided finance with the paperwork at this point to sort out which goes to where.
Yeah,
So much of this project was funded through a variety of tax levy and rate levy.
I remember it well. I'm looking
Yes.
for details.
Yes, I recognize that. We haven't sent the paperwork to sort that out. It is on Public Works radar. You'll recall that water and wastewater has a significant staff shortage right now, so certain things have fallen behind. This is one of those things.
Okay, you might want to take a marina operator then, move them over to there. But 72, 73, those projects say completed. Shouldn't they move to be completed? Instead, they're in the projects to remain open section. Just a note, I don't need an answer to that.
Yeah, I'll look to finance for that one.
Okay, there's also a mid-mount mower on number 95, received and paid in 2017. Project is now complete. Still in the projects to remain open section, should be moved. Then,
Go ahead, sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Hyde. I'm just slightly confused, but when I see, I'm just looking at that one you just cited, if it says balance on December 31st, so technically as of, and this is a question to staff, if it says balance on December 31st wasn't quite closed, but then finished in March of 2017, so when we get the 2017 report, is that when it'll come off the books then at that point?
as far as I'm aware, it says updated comments of April 2017 in your top right corner. That would be your comments. So I'm assuming as we do this report and we pass this motion, it becomes a closed project and finalized at that point. These shouldn't be in that particular remain open section as far as I'm concerned. So just to bring note to council's attention, on page 15 is the Port Dover Harbor Marina repairs, totaling $1.55 million worth of projects going on down there right now. Just in case you were thinking it was making us some money for the next 4 years, it won't be.
Sorry, Councillor Height, what number was that again?
Those are projects, item number 141, 143, 144, 145, 146,
Okay.
147, and finally 149, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Now, I see this, Mr. Chair, will be of interest to you. Number 183, projects to remain canceled. Cortland Community Center parking lot refurbishment. This has been in this thing as long as I've been here, and we still aren't getting it done, Mr. Chair. There was $44,000. It's been in and out and bounced out of budget since as long as I can remember being here. And now there's not enough funds to properly complete this project, so it will be rebudgeted.
Well, I can tell you that I've talked to Mr. Cridlin as to some of the problems with the parking in the Cortland Community Center. We park more on the street than we do on any of our own property, and yet there is property available. So I'm hoping that we can bring in a little bit of gravel and actually create some parking when it doesn't have to cost a whole lot. And I'm hoping that somewhere, whether it's the end of this year or next year, the beginning of next year somewhere, that we get that done. So I'm hoping that will become part of a report somewhere down the line, I hope.
Through the chair, to the chair, yes. We are looking at the capital budget now and going to get some better cost estimates and see what we need there to be coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr.
thanks.
Chair. Yeah, I guess like one of my concerns with that is we keep putting it off, yet maybe if the staff brought a report like a budget amendment like today, we would just pass it. And then it would eventually get done, so we don't get those phone calls. But if I could draw your attention to item 273. This is on page 27. This is the Port Rowan community parking lot, where there seems to be some leftover funding. This project cost $42,000. The actuals to dates were $15,000. You may be asking yourself, why did it come in under half price right now? Let me tell you why, because it's a lousy job. Okay, the catch basin sits above the road, so of course the pylons have been out there. I believe I brought this to someone's attention a few weeks ago, if not longer. They're still sitting there. Okay, the subsurface underneath the new tar and chip, if that's what you want to call it, is crumbling, cracked, and so we might as well just leave this money in here and spend that $15,000 every year, because that's what it's going to cost to do it properly unless you actually fix the base, because there's massive splits in it. Like I said, the catch basin's sticking up. I'm not sure who approves these things. The councillor certainly doesn't. Now, how do we resolve this situation? Because you're recommending it be closed. I'm thinking no right now. Does someone have an answer for me? Or I'll move a motion that we leave this open if that's what it takes, but I want it repaired.
Sorry, I'm looking to Mr. Cridlin. That's through his department.
Through the chair to Councillor Height, yeah. In 2016, Community Services had asked Public Works to tire and chip the parking lot, and that's what was done. Our price was considerably lower than the $42,000 that was budgeted. I don't, if we're talking a dig out and a paving and stuff, $26,000 is not enough money. We would probably have to throw another capital budget in with some real dollars to make sure it was done right. It was tired and chipped as a cover-up.
And I understand that, and I know if it was Talbot, it would be paved with gold, but it was only Port Rowan. What I'm asking for is at least to fix the catch basin. Like, I don't even know how you could spray over top of the thing and leave it like that.
Through the chair, the catch basin you did mention a couple weeks ago to me, I did mention to staff, and I'll go after them and make sure we get that lowered ASAP.
Mm-hmm. It just makes us look bad when we don't get quality work, especially when you're spending some money, at the very least, anyway. So the next one's on my list, 335, the Lakeshore Management Plan. This was the Hastings Drive study. I know it's every councillor's favorite study. It didn't cost us $35,000. In the end, it was over $50,000. So that was money well wasted. And then community signage. We had a bit of an overrun there. I'm wondering what happened there. Mr. Barrett, if you could explain why we were $20,000 over budget.
Yeah, that through the chair, the overage was a result of the gateway signs, the Todd signs along Highway 3 and Highway 6. The province had, or the firm Todd's that does the funding had billed us for the replacement, and that was not intended until the next year, but the invoice came through in 2015, and it was paid out of that year. So
Okay,
it was just a
appreciate
deferred.
that. I do have another question on some signs. I'm not sure if the other councillors have noticed or not, but there's the blue heritage signs that are around Norfolk County, like Port Ryerson, or there's some provincial signs and like that. Whose responsibility are they?
Those signs are tourism economic development. Those are through partnership arrangements, so they would make a payment and their signs would go up for a couple of years. I don't know the exact specifics off the top of my head, but Linda DeHaan-Cranon administers that program.
And like, are these the heritage signs? And they're not a province?
No, actually, on any provincial corridor, we can't put any signs up. The only ones we can do, or any of the local attractions, have to go through the Canada TODS program, Tourism-Oriented Destination Signage. So that's a separate thing altogether. But on our own roads, we developed a program probably 8 or 10 years ago that was something similar, where, let's say, Eco Adventures wants to direct visitors down there. They would pay a fee, and we would manufacture and install the signs on our road corridor, and it would be for multiple years. So that's what we have out there.
Now, I remember those signs, but like, I'll give you an example. Bacchus Woods, there was a blue sign that sat in front of it. Somebody in a snowplow smashed it off. It's now gone, never to be put up again.
Yeah,
But there are some other ones around that point to like Ryerson Historic Site and things like that, and they're all beat up, and I'm wondering,
Yeah.
how can we get them fixed?
Through the chair, those would be the Ontario Trust, I believe. We've got, some of them are like a casting, there's one out front. Some of them are just have that historic sign. I believe there's one that talks about Linwood. It's up on Highway 3. If you've got some in your ward, because I know there's a lot of historical spots down there, please let us know. We'll make some calls and we can get those signs replaced.
Like, instead of me driving around Norfolk County, not that I don't like to visit the other wards, Mr. Baird, don't we have an inventory, or you couldn't call them and ask them to do an inventory? Like, I haven't actually noticed a sign like that in good condition.
Yeah, again,
And
it's-
not just in Norfolk County, it's across the province that I've seen.
yeah, through the chair, they're really not our signs, and it's unfortunate that they haven't taken more stewardship of our responsibility for those. But we can certainly make some calls and make some suggestions that they should be replaced.
That'd be nice. It's Canada's 150th birthday coming up, and the signs for heritage are beat to death. Thank you.
Okay. Further? Councillor Columbus and then Brunton.
Yes, I'm looking at number 88. It's the on page 9 of the report. Roof repair, Talbot Gardens Arena, $42,000 to be completed in 2017. Mr. Cridlin, I take it we're going ahead with that roof repair, right?
Through the chair, yes, I just had to look at Lee Robinson, the Public Works, do that work, and they're going ahead with it. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got right now.
Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number 28, and I'm not sure, Judd Industrial Park Stormwater Pond. Is that a new pond, Lee? Or we're not talking about the old pond on Park Road? There's two on Park Road, I know, and the one is a big one that kind of needs clean, but is this another pond?
Through the chairman to council, my understanding is that this is the existing ponds that are there. With the development of the subdivision, the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change is requiring monitoring and other things to be done at those ponds as a result of the wellhead protection area, source water protection, all of that. There's a whole variety of things that are taking place with respect to that. So we've been doing some ongoing monitoring and are expecting that ongoing monitoring to lead to capital improvements that need to be done at the existing ponds.
Okay, because that outlet for that ponds was, is well downstream of the, your facility there. Where it goes into the river, it's below the, well, what's your facility on Cedar Street?
The Cedar Street facility.
Thank you. Okay, no, I just, I'm familiar with the pond, and so you say you might, what does that mean? What's 150 grand for, to clean it out, rebuild it, or?
It's going to depend on the monitoring and the requirements from the Ministry of the Environment after we complete the studies. So it's more of a placeholder that's been put in place as a requirement of requirements from the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change.
So is that 150,000 realistic?
Based on what we were given at the time, yes, it was a realistic number, but we won't know for sure until the studies are all completed and the ministry is satisfied with the results of that.
Okay. The other one I looked, number 42, the Wyndham Street North, where that property's being developed, and I know it was held up because the developer way back didn't want to contribute to rebuild. I think it was on Wyndham Street. Is that going to go ahead now?
Sorry, I'm sorry, which project number are you referring to?
42.
42? I'm going to look to Mr. Baird with respect to when that development is moving forward. Again, it's another project that's a result of, we can't move forward with the project until the developer comes forward.
Through the chair, So that's the former North School site, just up here at the top end of Colburn. The first phase, they've got, I believe there's 3 blocks of townhomes that are under construction. On Wyndham Street, which is immediately south, there's 2 blocks, and in that particular case, all of the sewer lateral connections have to be made. And there was some concern that that road needs to be upgraded. By the time you cut it, so many times and rebuild it, it needs to be built out. So my recollection is the county agreed that we didn't want, the developer wasn't expected to pay to repair the road to bring it up to the current standard, but they would make a contribution towards that, their work, and the county, this is the county's allocation, so that when the work was done, they would rebuild that stretch of Wyndham Street across that frontage. So it's a cost sharing, it's the county's share that was negotiated.
Okay. Number 65, Dingle Creek. Are we any further ahead on that one?
Through the chairman to council, again, that is with, the tribunals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I believe the most recent one coming up is June 23rd, or maybe it's next week. So we're slowly moving forward.
Thank you. Number 76, the soil remediation is, how are we doing on that one? Number 76? I see
My apologies, you're turning faster than I'm turning, so. We're progressing slowly. We'll have an update, we'll probably have a completed update for council in the information package for the July 11th council meeting. Just to give you an update on where we stand on that project.
Okay, and the other one, Lee, I'm not sure where it is in here, but I was going to ask you how the Port Dover problem with the water treatment plant, you were moving in a temporary tank, was it, to inspect? The update on that one?
Through the chairman to council, that project is ongoing. We brought in a temporary filtration plant that's operating. It will be operating for likely all summer and probably well into the fall. We were successful at maintaining pedestrian access to the beach. We had to shut it down for a few days while we had the construction equipment in there, but now that it's done, we've been able to provide just pedestrian access to the area, so we're pleased with respect to that. And it is ongoing. We will be doing the inspection at that facility shortly, and once we have that inspection completed, we will be in a position to make some recommendations to council for how we're going to proceed in Port Dover with respect to the water supply.
Okay, and is it in here? Like, is there a number for it in here or no?
It's in here somewhere. I apologize, I don't know which number it is.
Okay. All right, and the last one I question, it's the Waterford EMS project on the fire hall, where we're at on that. Sorry? I think it's 140. Is that correct? Yeah. Well, I just wondered, like, are we on? What council? It says here architecture. We're in the process of engineering that, I guess. Architectural drawings. Can somebody answer that?
Through the chair to Councillor Breton. Yes. What was the number again? I'm sorry.
140.
140. On the page over. Yeah. There will be a report coming in 2 weeks on that to update. Unfortunately, it's another budget amendment. There are some issues with site drainage. Once that is taken care of, we are on target to get this project moving.
And is it still to add on to the facility?
Yes, the north side of the building for 2 EMS units, as well as a meeting room, washroom, and everything with the first plan.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I need somebody to move the recommendation. Councillor Oliver?
Move the recommendation on the first page of the report.
Okay. Councillor Oliver has moved that staff report FS 17-19, re-2016 capital status report be received, and that the recommendations as set out in the schedule, including with report FS 17-9, be approved. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to, where are we here? Did I get the right one? No, I got it here somewhere. 5, okay, here we go. It's, hang on a second, I'll get it off of here, and that'll be better for me. Contract PWE 17-62 Basil Ave Reconstruction Simcoe. Is that you, Lee? Okay?
Through the chairman to council, before you this evening is the recommendation for the Basil Ave reconstruction project. Staff are recommending that the project be canceled and re-tendered so that the work will be completed in 2018. As always, staff try to bring forward recommendations that we believe are in the best financial interest of the municipality. We do not feel that the single tender we received for the work represents a good value, and we feel that by reissuing the tender this fall for work in the 2018 construction year, we will receive much better value, much better prices, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And when was this one tendered? Was it tendered late? Is that why you didn't get a very good price, or it wasn't competitive?
Through the chairman to council, I wouldn't say that it's tendered late. Typically, we would say something tendered in July or August it would be tendered late. We are seeing increased prices for whatever reason right now, and as such, we just don't feel that it's a good value for the money. We do know that we typically, if we tender in the fall for construction the following year, we do typically tend to get better pricing, as most of the work hasn't been let out for the following year yet.
So is most of the tenders that you put out, you say they are in the fall, or you probably can't do all the roads in the fall because you don't have enough manpower, right?
Through the chairman to council,
Power.
there's a huge variety of factors that go into what kind of prices. Sometimes it boils down to when we closed the project. Sometimes it boils down to the work. Sometimes it boils down to the timelines, et cetera. In this case, we truly believe it was just the time of year and the level of other work that's available during the same time for the contractors. We're just not seeing great prices. We feel that the work, if we tender it in the fall, it'll still achieve the same thing, but we should be able to get better pricing.
Okay, well, it is disappointing. I went out to the open house down at the rec center.
Councillor Brown, can you cut your mic off, please? Thank you.
And it's disappointing because this isn't the first time this has happened. I've had Robinson Street. This is a similar situation, and Holden Ave has been on the books put off for quite some time. I guess maybe there's nothing to do about it, but I have seen other projects come in over budget and they have gone through. What's the difference between this one being over and some of the other ones that have been over and still approved?
Through the chairman to council, again, staff bring forward a recommendation for a budget amendment when we feel that we've received good pricing and that the budget amount that we had included in the budget was not sufficient. In this particular case, we believe that the budgeted amount is sufficient. When we look at our historical costs and the other costs, for example, we had another project that was tendered in Delhi for similar type of work, and the pricing that we saw for that one was considerably less than what this one is, which would lead us to believe that this one is just not a good value, and that's our concern with respect to it. If we felt that our budget number was underestimated and that the prices, the dollar values that they were putting forward on their items were actually an excellent price, we would have certainly recommended a budget amendment. The reason is that we just feel that some of the prices that we would be seeing with only having one tender, it wasn't competitive, and the prices included in that one tender exceeded the other prices that we were seeing for similar work in the 2017 construction year.
So does this, thank you for that, appreciate it. Does this mean that any projects scheduled in Simcoe for next year will not be done because they're just being pushed off?
Through the chairman to council, absolutely not. The intention is that this will be included in the work already planned for Simcoe for 2018. This is already designed and ready to go, and it would be tendered this fall and awarded this fall so that the contractor could start as soon as possible in the spring of 2018.
Okay, lots of good answers, Lee. Thank you.
Councilor Brunton.
Yeah, just a quick question. Lee, is Almost working already somewhere for you?
Yes, they are. I know you're going to ask me where. I believe they're doing Main Street in Port Dover and Church Street in Delhi.
Okay, that kind of answers some of it. Thank you.
Mayor Luke.
Do you have a rough estimate through the chair to Lee, a rough estimate? Would we be maybe looking at maybe 300,000 less? Do you want to just comment on that or not? Like, it does seem, I'm assuming this is Wilson to Argyle period?
We estimate that this is likely 300 to 350,000
Yeah.
in excess of what we would expect the contract to be. Staff just in good conscience can't recommend that it be awarded based on the other prices that we've seen this year and that sort of stuff. We just don't feel that it's good value. And again, that's really a struggle for staff. I've stood here many times and argued why I should have additional money. In this particular case, I'm recommending that we don't spend the money this year. We retender it in the fall and get better pricing and do the work next year.
Mr. Chair, do you need a recommendation?
Yes, I do.
I will move it, and I would comment if you let me just to say that.
Go ahead.
I normally do not like budgeting and residents, I'm being told, well, it will be next year, and next year it's in the budget, and it's scheduled, and it's tendered. But once in a while, there has to be this situation where staff is telling us, and I agree with them, this is just not good value. And I think we can maybe get through one more winter. Well, we will. And, so I think this is a good recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, I have no other speakers. Mayor Luke has moved the recommendation that staff report PW 17-50 contract for PWE-17-62 Basil Ave reconstruction Simcoe be received as information, and that the tender of PW-E-17-62 Basil Avenue reconstruction Simcoe be canceled and retendered with the construction work to be completed in the summer of 2018. All those in favor? Sorry? Go ahead.
I know Mayor Luke raised a very good question about the expectations of the people that went to the open house. So would they be further notified that this project will be put off? Because they would be expecting it and anticipating, so.
Through the chairman to council, next week, after this has gone through council, staff will be sending a letter to all of the residents to advise them, as well as changing the construction project sign to indicate 2018.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to staff report HS 17-12, service agreement with Evergreen Heights Child Care Center, child care fee subsidy. I take it that's you, Marlene.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a service agreement with Evergreen Heights Child Care Center that will be located at 140 Oak Street here in Simcoe for the provision of subsidized licensed care. This new program will offer 45 new spaces, 6 of which are for infants, 15 for toddlers, and 24 for preschoolers starting in October of this year. The funding is available to support the fee subsidy agreement and with this operator within the existing budget, and it is provided by the Ministry of Education at 100% provincial funding. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Height.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Height has moved. Any questions? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Marlene, for the report. I know I should know this, but the numbers that are quoted in the recommendation, $41, $39, $37, is that a number that's set by the province that the facility can charge the parents, or I just am always puzzled by that. They're offering the service. We know families are eligible for a fee subsidy, I guess, from the province. But what do those numbers represent? The net cost to the family, the gross cost charged by the facility? Could you explain it, please?
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver, those are the fees that are set from the operator, and it's a combination of averages across the province. And that's not the subsidy that the families will receive, but there's a calculated formula that based on income and dependent on where they land, then the subsidy for that particular family and child is set accordingly. It can be up to the rates that are in the report.
Okay, so the subsidy will reduce those numbers for the actual cost that the family ends up having to pay, depending on their ability to pay.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, I see no speakers. Councillor Height has moved that staff report HS 17-12, service agreement with Evergreen Heights Child Care Center, child care fee subsidy be received as information, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a service agreement with Evergreen Heights Child Care Center located at 140 Oak Street, Simcoe, for the provision of subsidized licensed child care at the daily rate of $41 for infants and $39 for toddlers and $37 for preschoolers. This approval is conditional upon submission by Evergreen Heights Child Care Center to Norfolk County of verification of adequate liability insurance and licensing approval from the Ministry of Education. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the next one. Staff report HS 17-13, cross judicial agreements. Boy, that's a good one for me. Child care fee subsidies. Once again, you're up, Marlene.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a cross-jurisdictional child care subsidy agreement with bordering municipalities, which will include Brant and Brant County, St. Thomas, Elgin County, Niagara Region, and the City of Hamilton. The fee subsidy, as per my previous report, is currently available to eligible families and caregivers that reside and access child care within the counties of Haldimand and Norfolk. At times, families and caregivers are unable to access care. This agreement will enable them to access care outside of our jurisdiction while still being able to access the fee subsidies available to them. This funding is available through the Ministry of Education. It's 100% funded, and it will be within our existing budget, so there is no levy impact. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Columbus.
No levy impact. I will move the recommendation.
Councillor Columbus has moved. And I'm going to try this again. I might need some help. That staff report HS 17-13, cross-jurisdictional agreements. Is that correct? How do you pronounce that word?
Jurisdictional.
Jurisdictional, okay, agreement. Child care fee subsidies be received as information, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a cross-jurisdictional child care fee subsidy agreement with bordering municipalities, City of Brantford, Brant County, St. Thomas, Elgin County, Niagara Region, and the County of and the City of Hamilton, as required to meet the needs of the residents in the Haldimand and Norfolk who require subsidized child care outside of Haldimand and Norfolk. And further, that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a cross-jurisdictional child care fee subsidy agreement as requested by the bordering municipalities to meet the needs of the families residing outside of the Haldimand and Norfolk who require subsidized child care with Haldimand and Norfolk. All those in favor? That is carried. I think that's the end of it, of our reports. At least I think so. The only thing that I have left is other business. starting with Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two items I just want to bring to council's attention this evening. Number one, Mayor Luke, Councillor Black, Councillor Wells, and I on Sunday afternoon attended the unveiling of a plaque in Victoria at the historic Anglican Church around the United Empire Loyalists and the Long Point settlement and their role in the original Long Point settlement. It was a great event. We appreciated having the mayor there. He spoke, and as usual, the UEL group is active and continues to highlight the role of UEL. So I just wanted to mention that, and I was glad that we got invited. The other thing I want to mention, Mr. Chair, if I could, and I see he's in the audience, there was an article in the recent edition, last week's edition of the Norfolk News, Thursday, June the 15th, titled "What Norfolk Can Learn from Wilmot's Community Hub," authored by Jeff Tribe. And I just would like to acknowledge the fact I found the article. I mean, we around the table know already about it, and some of us have seen it, but it was a very well-written article, very informative, and I think will help our residents as they debate and discuss the merits of this project. So I just wanted to mention that, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Wells. Other business.
Mr. Chair, I just have one item, and I'd like to speak to the walkabout that Councillor Oliver and I had last week with the Port Dover Board of Trade. And I think today I sent everybody an email with comments from Jan Overand, who authored the report. And certainly, Mr. Chair, we listened to several concerns and some possible solutions to those concerns. And most of their concerns revolved around parking, or more importantly, lack of parking in downtown. I think that was the basic thrust of the exercise. They expressed disappointment over the past few years where there has been a loss of some 20 to 25 parking spaces in certain areas, and then in addition to that, we waived the need for required parking spaces for the new condo development at the old Meisner Fish Plant. So all totaled, Mr. Chair, they are suggesting that in the last few years, they've lost between 40 to 50 different parking spaces in downtown. Now, I don't have to tell you that parking in downtown Port Dover is critical to the tourist industry. There were other issues that they just mentioned very quickly. I will go over those, and I forward the minutes to Lee Robinson, and I've spoken to Lee, and what she has suggested is that she'll be coming back with a report. So I'm not going to go over those right now tonight. I'll wait for the report and then speak to it at that time. But a suggestion was made that maybe we could allow public parking for visitors at the former Doverwood School property. I know it's not right next to the beach, but certainly we own that property, and why couldn't we put a sign there for July, August, and September, free parking? What could happen, Mr. Chair, is that if a family comes, they could drive down to the beach with the family, unload their beachwear. She could drive back up to the parking lot, and then when they have finished, and he or she would have to walk down unless a taxi wanted to be there, because obviously we cannot supply taxi fare. But I guess I was surprised, Mr. Chair, when I heard that that would not be advisable from county staff. And if not that, then what would be wrong, Mr. Chair, with parking at Kinsman Park, which again is owned by the county, and there is access to parking there, and the same thing could happen. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I have a couple other things, but I wonder if I might ask Ms. Robinson, who I think was the one who suggested that they could not park at Doverwood School, nor could they park at Kinsman.
Lee?
Through the chairman to council, I don't think that that's all credited to Public Works, but we will address it for you in the report that we're coming back.
Okay.
Recognizing somewhat of the urgency with respect to this and council's break, we will have something to council for the night of the council meeting of July 11th.
I certainly thank you very much for that, and I appreciate that very much, and I'll look forward to your report, and it'll answer that. But I do have a request, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that I'd like to present to council and see if there's any interest in my request. And my request is that we authorize staff to look at the possibility of buying some property in downtown Port Dover for parking. And obviously, they would look and see if there's any available property for sale and come back with some kind of report. And that would be my request, Mr. Chair, that we authorize staff to do that, if that is the wish of council, obviously.
I guess we'll have to have a motion to do that. Or do you want staff? You look, sorry? We can't do it. We'll leave it till next week at the council meeting. That will be proper form, so if you could bring it up next week, apparently that's going to work. Notice of motion.
So the clerk will do that?
Yes.
And, all right, that's fine. As long as we get to the table and council will decide whether yay or nay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councillor Oliver.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate Councillor Wells bringing his report forward. Could I raise one other one that's in the letter, Councillor Wells, that I also think is time sensitive relative to the downtown, Mr. Chair, off this?
We're going to respond to all of the issues in the letter. I
I-
recognize there are some in there that need to be addressed before that July 11th date.
Yes.
And so we will do that before that date.
Okay, the one in particular that I was going to ask about was the fact that we have closed Main Street as a result of our construction, but the street is closed at the corner of Main and Market, and yet there is an exit off of Main at the next one over, which is what, Clinton? So when I stood there with the folks the other morning and looked at it, we have a big closed sign there, and yet we know traffic is going up and back and parking on the main street, and apparently businesses are feeling that a lot of customers are being scared away because of the sign, and yet perhaps the sign isn't mandatory in that sense. So,
Mr. Chair, I can answer that for
Okay.
Councillor Oliver. That problem has been solved today. They were there and they have paved that section.
Councillor Height, you had a question on the
Thank
same?
you. Yes, Mr. Chair, I like the idea of having a parking lot in what used to be the school or the other two proposed locations. I'm wondering if we don't have a bus or two that go out in that direction, or at least close by, to help them not have to pay for the cab to get down there. Maybe that could be in the report as well.
Okay. So you will have that ready for our next council meeting. Councilor Brunton? Yes? Yes?
For information, I'm going to give a notice of motion for our next meeting. Will we be discussing it and make a decision at our next meeting? I don't want to put over until the end of the summer.
Could we bring that forward in next week? That's a tough one. Normally, you have to give notice of a...
Look,
Go ahead.
the fundamental problem from a procedural perspective, I don't want to put our deputy clerk on the spot right now, is that these are not items specifically that the public are aware we're going to be discussed. So as we bring them up, if they're going to form action items, or in particular, if they're going to possibly result in the expenditure of public resources, i.e. money, really the appropriate thing is to bring a notice of motion here now so that next week you can have a fulsome discussion on whatever the item happens to be, and then instruct us, and we will, of course, follow suit and provide you with the work product.
I think that's what you put forward, right? So it'll be here next Tuesday.
That's correct. Now, Councillor Height has some additional ideas, obviously. Those could pertain, or we could have two separate notices of motion, but I think they're close enough that they could piggyback on the one Councillor Wells intends to bring.
Okay. Councillor Brunton? Nothing tonight. Wow. Councillor Height? Other business.
Just one or two things, Mr. Chair. On your blotters, I've left you excerpts from different official plans, Leamington, Elgin County, Niagara official plan, that that deals with the development issues around the shorelines. I know we talked about this at yesterday's meeting, and obviously a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm not sure what 3 official plan excerpts are worth, but it was worth more than a no vote, I feel. But so be it. Okay, so now I do want to talk about the official plan stuff here, because I believe it was called Grow Norfolk. I may bring a notice of motion forward, and we might call it Norfolk County Where Red Tape Grows. Because in the official plan, I did a quick word search, and the word site plan control comes up 87 times. I'm not sure how many we had before then, but I'm thinking we're going to need 17 more staff to deal with those 87 times that site plan control will affect our development applications. But I guess out of all of that, I only really have one question to the county manager, and that's as the official plan moves forward, people have the ability to oppose certain aspects of it. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So as a counselor, I would also have those rights?
Yes. So your appeal rights, when we're looking at an official plan, don't crystallize until an official plan gets approved. So if this council, if that comes to pass in the mid to late fall of this calendar year, I'd have to look it up. It's 60 days, maybe. I don't want to be quoted. There's a period of time which we will report on when in the fall, hopefully when we have the return document from the province. But there is an appeal period in which anyone who's resident in Norfolk County or owns property here can appeal.
Good to know. Thank you.
Each of you owns property here.
Councillor Columbus, any other business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a bit of information to share and then 2 questions for Ms. Robinson. First of all, I'd like to just mention that Mayor Luke and Mr. Cridland and myself, we met with a group of Delhi District Secondary School teachers at 7:30 a.m. this morning, and to discuss a proposal that's pretty important for Norfolk County. They are proposing a double gym with a 3 or 4 walking lane, upper track be built, and a fitness gym at the south end of Delhi District Secondary School. This would be for 12-month use. It would be partnered with the Grand Erie Board of Education, and we're looking at partnered with the county and the Grand Erie in service clubs and that type of thing. I believe they mentioned 12 to 13,000 square foot, and it would be a $2 to $3 million project, and they're looking at possibly 4 to 7 years before it's actually constructed. This is just very preliminary stages. There's a public open house going to be taking place on Tuesday, the 27th of June, which is a council night, 6 p.m. at the Delhi District Secondary School Library. They've been working on this for a few weeks, and they decided to go public with it. Perhaps the press has it already. Mayor Luke or Mr. Cridland can add further comments if they wish.
Mayor Luke, go ahead.
Yes, on this, I think Councillor Columbus has covered it very well, but I just want to add that this morning, Mr. Cridland, I want to thank you for your time bright and early at 7:30 at the Delhi School. And certainly this is just in its preliminary stage of discussions, and it certainly is something that's going to be looked at very carefully, and if details are worked out further, at one point it will come back. It will obviously come to this council. So the feeling this morning, I think, Mr. Cridland, is fair to say that this group seems to be very enthusiastic and really feels there is a need, not just at the school, because it's the only secondary school in Norfolk County that has a single gym that can't be divided into 2, and they just simply, they're at almost capacity of 550 students, and they feel that it's something that could be win-win, something they could use during the day, and certainly the gymnasium part weekends, evenings by the residents of the county. And we know there is a definite need in the county, and particularly in the West End, for this this gymnasium space. So I'm always interested in partners and people willing to help share costs. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver on this subject?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I know there'd be a lot of pickleballers that would love to see that gymnasium space. So.
Councillor Columbus, you had one more?
I do. This is for Ms. Robinson. And we have experienced projects that have come over budget and under budget. And I know the Queensway East reconstruction project and the West, I guess there's some dollars left over in the budgeting process. And possibly a lot of other projects where there's non-expended dollars. Is there any way that we could possibly have you put a report together that we can use those unexpended dollars to just perhaps do a resurfacing of some of our roads in our communities across the various wards?
Lee?
Through the chairman to council, staff would be happy to put that together, but I will give the treasurer an opportunity to speak because he always likes to take his opportunity when it comes to money we didn't spend yet to reiterate his point, so I will let him do that, but staff would be happy to put together a list of projects for council's consideration if they wish.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's money that we haven't spent, so that doesn't mean it's money that we could use for projects that that we haven't budgeted for in our 10-year capital projection. As you know, our reserves are in critical shape, and I wouldn't hesitate to say that pretty much all our reserve money over the next 10 years have been accounted for projects going forward. So and then we're also in an infrastructure. We have an infrastructure issue in Norfolk County. So any money that we do not spend on a capital project that is funded from a reserve, that money stays in that reserve to be used on future planned projects. But that's not to say that we can't use that for perhaps a project that we planned for anyways, maybe perhaps being done a little bit quicker.
So thank you for that, James. And perhaps if we can get the list of projects that perhaps need attention, and if we can find out how many dollars were unexpended, we can marry the two together and maybe something will come of it, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So I guess we need the dollar amount that's potentially available, and along with what roads you feel need to have attention as soon as possible. My last question, Lee, is about the Highway 59 and 3 intersection on the west side of Delhi. And there's been several accidents there, and I have been getting complaints about the heavy traffic at that intersection. Can we send another note off to MTO about that intersection and see if they'll light it up with the traffic signals?
Through the chairman to council, certainly, as you're well aware, that intersection is under the jurisdiction of the MTO, and we do not have the ability to put in any sort of traffic control devices at that intersection. We can certainly send another letter seeking council's direction with respect to whether that letter is to be signed by the mayor or if you would like it signed by staff.
Okay. But all we can do.
Which is it that perhaps the mayor should send that letter?
I guess staff are just seeking direction. We can certainly craft it if council wishes to have the mayor sign it. We can certainly prepare it for the mayor's signature, or staff can simply send it under our.
Okay, as long as they get the letter, I think that, is there any way that we can get the number of accident incidents that occurred at that intersection? Would that come from the OPP, I guess? Can that be part of the letter?
Through the chairman to council, I would like to say yes, we could, but we are experiencing difficulty with some of the freedom of information and some of the other issues. There's a movement on to correct that problem, and it actually should be corrected shortly, but I believe that there'll be a gap in our ability to do that. We will do the best we can to get as much information as we can to put forward. The MTO actually has more ability to obtain that information than we do.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Height?
Chair, if I could ask Councillor Columbus, is that the intersection at Lockhart's? At Highway 59 and 3?
No, it's not. It's at 59 and 3 at the Dell Motel and the Maple Leaf Motel.
Oh, so like old 59?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sonnenberg.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus just mentioned roads that need attention. You've often heard me complain around this table about the condition of the county line in my area. I am pleased to report that we are now doing extensive shoulder work on that road, and I think once it's tarred and chipped, it will improve that road considerably. It's not due for a complete rebuild for another 5 years, but the work that's being done now will make a vast improvement, and it's good to see. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, question through you to Chris. Just, I think you may have said it already, but I've forgotten. When does the official plan go off to the province, and how long does it take until it comes back?
Okay, so after council, what they approved yesterday, we're waiting till council next Tuesday to ratify your decision. And at that point, we've got a little bit of housekeeping. I think it was mentioned, we've got some mapping to tidy up, some of the changes that council decided yesterday. Get all that done. Mary's working on it this week, as a matter of fact. So presumably, by the end of the month, it'll be off to the province. They have 90 days, of which time that they'll go through it. And they're well aware of what's going on, so it won't come as a surprise. So 90 days presumably is July, August, September. So near the end of September, we would get that document back from them. And they will either say it's approved, they support it or endorse it, or they might say they would support it with some changes. And again, there's a bit of negotiation, maybe perhaps back and forth. And then council would have their obligatory public meeting to do the final adoption. And at that point, it's subject to, just like any other planning application, a 21-day appeal. Mr. Cribbs had mentioned, wasn't sure the exact date, but it would be similar, so that if there was anyone, a resident, that wanted to appeal a section or a decision, they would have that right to do so, and that process would, so that would just protract the actual adoption or implementation of it until such time. As you know, our zoning bylaw, even though it was approved 2 years ago, it was still subject to a handful of appeals that have gradually been worked out, negotiated out, or resolved. So that's kind of the timeline. If all goes well, by the end of the year, we could have that fully implemented, and away we go.
Okay, thanks very much. And just one further thing, I'd like to thank the mayor for allowing me to go on his behalf and Norfolk County Council to help celebrate the Habitat for Humanity restore on Park Road. They had their opening night last Friday, and lots of people attended, and our local MPP, Toby Barrett, was there. Really impressed with the whole concept of Habitat for Humanity, because it is the idea of a hand up, not a handout. And the restore had all kinds of interesting things in it, and kitchen tables and beds and odds and ends. I thought it would have been perfect for people like my daughter going off to university. There's some really good deals in there. So I would encourage everyone to go out there and have a look. And if you do have some items that are, if you're thinking about wanting to get rid of them and they're still in good shape, they certainly would take those donations. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Luke, any other business?
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 things. I'll just be a minute, but I'll go over them very quickly. I met this morning with Kim Earls. As you know, she's our regional economic development coordinator with SCORE, and she has wanted me to just ask if any members of council have any concerns they would like SCORE to take to AMO, to speak to our ministers, and likewise, if you have anything in Norfolk particular, you could give them to Maureen. I know that AMO is August the 13th. It's less than 2 months away in Ottawa. And certainly, as Councillor Oliver knows from our sort of reorganization of SCORE, we are making the advocacy that we do have. We're very fortunate to be able to have a rapport with our provincial ministers and meet with them rather than just form letters that get form letters back. I say that respectfully, but so let us know. That's the date there. If you could get them in the next week.